Next, we're going to talk about absolute value equations. Now, with absolute value equations, you can have two solutions. So here's our first example. We've got the absolute value of x plus 2 equal to 5. Our goal here is to solve for x. So let's just think to ourselves first, what are two different values of x that when we plug those in here, when we substitute them in for x and add it to 2, that'll get us to 5. So think about that for a second, pause this video if you need to, and then come back and we'll see what those answers are. Now, one of the things you might have thought was, ooh, I know that 3 plus 2 is x, so one of those values could be 3. That's absolutely true. Now let's think of another one. Remember how we were looking at that number line and we were talking about a distance from 0. Now if we went to the right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we started at 2, we would need to go 1, 2, 3 units to get to 5, which is where that x equals 3 came from. But we could also go 5 units to the left of 0. So maybe we need to get from 2 to -5 and see how we can get there. So then if we wanted to get from 2 to -5, we would be subtracting 7. So our other x value could be x equals -7. Now let's think about that for a second. Does that work? -7 plus 2 is -5. And we know the absolute value of -5 is 5. So -7 and 3 are both values of x that work for this equation. So let's get into some specifics about how we can solve these equations instead of just having to guess. So here's our first example. We've got the absolute value of x minus 10 equal to 25. When we're solving for x in these types of equations, we're going to have two cases. One case where we keep the original form of what was inside of our absolute value. Nothing about it changes except we take away those absolute value bars. The second case, we're still going to take away the absolute value bars, but out front we're going to put a negative sign. So those are our two cases. You're always going to do that. Whatever's inside your absolute value, you'll have the original and you'll have the negative version of it. So let's look at case number 1. We've got x minus 110 equals 25. The goal here is to get x by itself. So we can move this 110 over by adding it to both sides. So then we have x is equal to 135. If you want to check and make sure that you're getting that right, you can always plug your value back into the original absolute value equation and see if you get 25. Case number 2. There are two ways to solve this. One way is to divide the negative first. The other way is to distribute the negative. You can do either one. I'm going to divide the negative. So I'm going to divide both sides by -1. Again, if you'd rather distribute the negative to both pieces, that's great, do that. But if we divide by -1, then on the left we're left with x minus 110, and then on the right we have -25. 25 divided by -1 is -25. Then we're going to add that 110 again, just like we did in the first case, plus 110, and then -25 plus 110 gets us 85. So x is equal to 85. And again, you can always substitute that back into the original absolute value equation and make sure you get 25.